Hey everybody, this is Randy from the New York City Drone Film Festival, and welcome to the Masterclass series from New York City Drone Film Festival 3. This next class that you're going to see is Drones and 360, taught by the amazing Mr. Justin Oakes of Droneworks Studios. If you don't know about Droneworks Studios, you should. They're from Texas, I'm pretty sure Houston. And they build big drones, they fly big drones, they fly big cameras, they fly 360 rigs, big ones and small ones. Droneworks is a frequent collaborator with one of our partners, Samsung, and basically what they've done with them is they've created custom gimbals for a bunch of amazing celebs like Casey Neistat, like Carly Kloss, and the list goes on. Droneworks is also known for creating that huge ass drone that was on stage at New York City Drone Film Festival named Janet, which is a hexadeca, lots of motors, lots of batteries, but safe enough to fly Mr. Casey Neistat. So, you know, they know what they're doing. And this talk right here is entry point for those of you looking for more information on 360 and drones, some best practices, some ideas. So check it out and shoot some better 360 videos.
Unlike a GoPro, like an action camera, when we first give these things to influencers or whoever, the first thing you want to do, it's really natural, is just sort of like do this sort of thing. Like, hey, look at me and experience this with me. But if you were to watch that in 360, you become sick. I mean, it takes 10, 15 seconds of a scene like this or somebody walking around is nauseating. So stabilization is probably the most important concept to really lock down when you think about VR filmmaking. The easiest way to achieve that, of course, is to simply mount one of these cameras on a tripod. Just have it locked down sitting there and you walk around it, and that's it. If you attempt to walk with this and you just sort of do this, again, through a head-mounted display, through goggles, it'll look bad. So you have to figure out a way to stabilize it. And this is what we've been doing with our other drone products. When we fly, again, cinema cameras, we figure out a way to stabilize them. So we're using gimbals of various kinds, 3-axis electronic stabilizers. We brought one today. Stratton here in the front row has one of our handheld stabilizers, sort of. Is that together, Stratton? And he took it apart. But we'll have it after if you guys want to have a look. But essentially, they're the same stabilizers that everyone here is familiar with or you may have seen. Those very smooth cinematic shots. The person who was up here earlier with those DJI products, they have camera stabilizers. It's the same thing. It just stabilizes this 360 camera. If you don't stabilize this, the footage in our experience at least has been essentially unusable. Aside from some very limited cases where you have what we call the cockpit effect, where if you put this very close to someone and you compose the shot just to them and they're running, it could be okay. Like your brain needs to have something stable in order for this not to be nauseating. So on a drone, there are some very common concepts that we apply here, removing vibration and then applying stabilization. So we do that with 3-axis gimbals, and then in post-production we'll also use post-stabilization software and things like that. But that's really the name of the game. As far as VR is concerned, if you go away from this with one thing, remember to keep everything very stable. Samsung last night, I'm not sure if everyone is aware of this or if they announced it to the larger audience, but Samsung announced a partnership wherein monthly they're going to be giving $5,000 away to the best 360 video, drone-based 360 video. So this is a really neat opportunity. If you can figure out a way to apply these basic concepts I'm describing today into a 360 video from a drone, it's $5,000. The New York City Drone Film Festival is administrating that, so I'm not sure who's, if it's a judging process or whatever, but it's really neat. And the purpose of that is so that we get people thinking outside the box, coming up with new ways. We've been doing VR for a long time and drone-based VR for a long time, but we're in a very narrow niche sort of market. We want to see what everybody else can come up with. So new ways to push the boundaries. Take all of these rules that I'm giving you and throw them out the window, and maybe you can come up with some new way. Break that code to figure out how to tell VR stories in a more interesting way. In the VR industry as a whole, the general concept is you do not want to move the camera. If you type into Google, how to shoot VR, the first things you'll see is don't move the camera. And the reason for that is this nauseating thing that you experience if you don't move the camera really, really well. With drones, we said, screw that. Let's move it a lot. Let's actually let's move everything. I mean, let's make it as cinematic as we can. So our preference is to move the scene a lot. We think movement makes everything more exciting. So can you hover? Yeah, we can hover. Just you hover. If it's not windy, you may not even need a stabilizer for that. You can just sit there and hover, and it may be good enough to use, which could give you an interesting perspective. Say you're hovering over a race of some kind, for instance, and it will allow the viewer just to have this tripod locked out shot from an aerial perspective where they can kind of follow along. I mean, that seems like a pretty neat experience to me. But if we're tracking an athlete or there was a boat scene in there, then movement, I think, is really important. If you move the camera and it's not stable, it's going to be very disorienting. And I suggest everyone do it. I mean, put the camera on something or hang it out your car window and drive like this, and then review the footage, and you'll see what I mean. Oh, here we go. So we use stabilize. So this stuff, we build all this stuff at Droneworks. So this is a good example. So basically, we take this camera and we take all the movement out of it. So this is completely locked out. And when it's locked out like that, you can walk around with this and you can do selfie type stuff. And we fly something very similar to this, just inverted. We mount stuff like this to our cars, etc. But it's old technology. It's the same thing we've been doing for years with cinema cameras. So I think movement's really good. It just has to be really stable. Yeah, so Stratton's with Droneworks. We'll have this after the show if anybody wants to play with it just to sort of get an idea. But basically, it just stabilizes. It's really pretty simple. Stabilizes 3 axes, and it makes it so the footage is absolutely usable. We did the Oscars recently, and going down the red carpet, just handheld like this, was completely unusable. You give them that, and it's this beautiful cinematic shot. And it allowed the viewer or the visitor to really experience what it's like to be on the red carpet. So it's pretty cool. If you guys want to check that out, that was on Carly Kloss's Facebook page is where that was released. So it could be an interesting thing to look at. Any questions about VR storytelling or technical stuff or drone stuff? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, really great question. He said he's heard that panning is not suggested. So in other words, turning the camera like this, yawing or panning. And he's exactly right. You want the camera to be locked off completely. So you don't want to move it really any way, because what you want is your viewer to decide where they're going to pan, if you will. So if you grab this camera and turn it like that, then in the goggles, even though the viewer's looking forward or wherever they're looking, it's this sort of a cognitive dissonance thing happens where they don't really, it's hard to explain, you just have to experience it, but basically you feel it. You feel your head moving, but you're not moving, and it's very uncomfortable. So the idea is you want the camera just completely locked down. So when we fly these cameras on drones, they're usually inverted like this, and they don't move at all. In other words, the camera itself does not move. The drone may be moving through space and yawing and making corners, but we never pan. There are some very limited exceptions, as there are to basically everything in filmmaking, I guess. Like I said, if you're doing like a selfie type of thing, where the person that's talking to the camera is important for whatever reason. If you have the president and he's walking down the street, you're most interested in what he's saying as opposed to the guy in the background or whatever. So in that case, we would pan with the person. It's kind of a difficult concept to really grasp until you experience it in the goggles, but for whatever reason, that feels okay. If I tried to show you guys right now and I wanted to roll this and I just went like that, it would be very bizarre in the headset. You'd be like moving but not moving, and it just destroys that whole feeling of immersion. If you completely lock this out, on the other hand, it's very comfortable and it allows you to choose whatever you want. And yeah, go ahead, please.
Editing. So are there any main differences between editing in 2D versus 360?
Yeah, there are some really interesting things, and it's somewhat related to your panning question. Hopefully everybody heard that, but he asked about, are there differences between 2D and 360 editing? And there are, from a technical perspective, the programs you use and things like that. That's not a huge hurdle to overcome. I would say the most interesting difference is the fact that you have to anticipate where the viewer is going to look. So you're shooting all around us, right? Like say we're shooting this entire room. when you skip between this scene and the following scene, say we skip to a scene of outside and they're flying in the test cage out there, you would need to anticipate where the viewer ended looking in this scene. So if your viewer is facing this way, like I would imagine the viewer in this scene would probably be looking at you guys or me, but it's unlikely the viewer would be looking at that wall. If you set the next scene to begin at this view, then they may be looking who knows where. Like you have to anticipate the transitions between scenes, and you can reorient that all in post-production. So we capture everything around us, and then in post we orient the sphere, or what we call the equirectangular, which is like a lat long projection of 360. It's a 2-to-1 ratio, like 360 by 180 representation. I don't want to get too like granular, but basically you have this big thing that you can reorient. So you tell, or you don't tell, you have to predict where they're going to look, and then in the next scene you have to do the same thing. So yeah, that's one of the goals. People have been experimenting with that using light or sound. So like I saw a really neat thing with a horror, it was a horror video, and they used a flashlight to like kind of guide the viewer. So the room was all dark and all you saw was this beam of flashlight, and there were monsters, and where it just naturally, it felt really comfortable to just follow the beam. I've seen that done also with birds, where like, you know, the birds will fly off and up, and that will lead the viewer into the next scene where maybe there's a plane in the sky or something. Because otherwise, how do you persuade someone to look up into the sky into the next scene? So it's really, it's something that every video that we create at the office, at least 2 or 3 of us work together and watch the video and feel what's natural for us, and that's how we gauge, you know, whether or not we set the scene right. Facebook actually just released something not long ago, a couple months ago, that's really neat. It's called a heat map. It's a viewer heat map. So now you can upload videos to Facebook, and you go into their like analytics section, and it'll display a heat map of where the viewers were looking most. So the red area is where most viewers were looking at a given point in a video, and the green area is where they didn't look. So we can somehow, you know, we can see how well we guessed. And if we guessed wrong, then on the next video we'll learn from our mistakes. But yeah, it's a guessing game. There's an interesting term for this. The people who are looking at the wall or looking at the floor, we call them rebellious viewers. That's like a VR industry term right now. So creating stuff for rebellious viewers has actually become kind of like a little bit of an art form, I guess. Where like, I mean, what do you do if somebody's just looking at the sky? They're gonna miss all your content, everything you shot. So people, VR producers will put interesting things in those spaces. And sometimes it can be really funny. I mean, it's something completely out of the ordinary and odd. I remember I looked at one recently where if you look down and left, there was a horse's face just in your face. It sounds really bizarre, but it was amusing. It was my favorite part of the video. The video was a girl playing a violin and her parents on the other side of the camera, and there was just a horse's face. I don't know how, it sounds really bizarre, but it was actually amusing. So yeah, that's a really interesting concept. That's a long-winded explanation. I hope it was good. Okay, cool. Yeah, please go ahead.
This might be quite daft. I'm a very beginner, but
go for it.
In terms of like a post-production process for something like that Carly Kloss video in your reel where you had captions for, I think it was hair and makeup or Adobe or something. Is there like a warp on the raw footage that would affect, say, After Effects motion graphics on top or something?
Yeah, great. Yeah, great question. Yeah, absolutely. So that's another part of, I didn't want to drill down too crazy into the technical stuff. I'm happy to. I love that stuff. But yeah, absolutely. The distortion that you're referring to. So because it's a sphere, when you display it in a flat projection, it distorts the top and bottom. Well, it distorts the whole image other than the very center. So if you were to go into After Effects and drop on traditional graphics, it's not going to distort it correctly. It's going to look very bizarre. You'll see it very quickly. That's one of the neat things with VR. I mean, you can see it immediately. Just drop it on, render out, and it's going to look crazy. There are some wonderful plugins that we use for After Effects. There's a company called Mettle, M-E-T-T-L-E. They make a product called Skybox Studio, and they're really the leaders in VR post-production plugins. They make one for After Effects that's awesome. Almost all of that content has been run through Skybox. where it allows you to work actually in a 360 space. So it'll give you a 360 projection that you can look around. You can use goggles, or you can just look on your computer and drag the mouse around like you've done on Facebook or wherever. So you can drop a graphic in, motion track it like the Carly Kloss stuff that you saw there, and you can see it in real time and then render it out, and it's perfect. And it's getting better all the time. The software is cheap. It's like $600 or something. And free upgrades. I mean, every month or two, the guy who runs the company, Chris, issues updates, and it's just getting easier and easier and easier. Stabilization can also be run, which is a huge thing. So a lot of that Carly footage was handheld because she couldn't get the stabilizer into whatever fancy thing she was at. So we had to post-stabilize it all in After Effects, and we use Skybox Studio for that. So yeah, it's great. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, please go ahead. Or let.
As far as like stabilizing cameras, if we don't have the resources to build, something like that stabilizer, are there ways you can kind of retrofit like movies and things to carry stuff like that, or a GoPro rig, or even the Ozo? Because I know we've tried to do some stuff on the Alta and have gotten just attaching a straight rod to the bottom, you get a lot of oscillation and toilet bowl effect.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, we've experienced that too. We saw our Ozo in there. We fly that stabilized, and yes, you can use a Movi in products like that, but it takes some modification. Unfortunately, I wish the answer right now was, you buy this product and you mount your camera and you go, right? And it works, just like we have for cinema cameras, Reds or Alexas or whatever. But there's nothing on the market that does it yet. And that's why we've had to make our own. We don't sell anything at Droneworks. Unfortunately, these things are expensive, and because they're one-offs, it's a lot. That's got to change. I mean, I think it's kind of ridiculous. There's definitely a huge market need for stabilization tech, and it's got to be coming. I'm hoping FreeFly is doing something. That would be wonderful. I think it's kind of silly that they don't already have it. We have a bunch of Movies and the new Movi Pros, and we've mounted the Ozo to them with counterweights. The problem is that you end up with a really inefficient system. Basically what you do with a Movi, I have hundreds of pictures of this. I just don't know the best way to pull them up on this screen, but you basically take a Movi, pitch it straight down, and then you extend an Ozo or a GoPro array or whatever, Odyssey, and you use a big counterweight. So you counterweight it with like 10 pounds, 15 pounds, so that the balance is still there, so the pitch balance is still there. Of course, you're adding a huge counterweight, so you got to fly a big aircraft. You won't fit on an Alta, so we fly one of our big coax type rigs. So it's big, it's heavy, it's inefficient, it's dangerous. I wouldn't go as far as say dangerous, but it's definitely more dangerous than normal. You also have to figure out how to take off and land. If you can imagine the challenge there. I'm sure it sounds like you've done it, so you're probably hand catching and taking off. So there's got to be a solution that comes out. We've experimented with retracts and all this kind of stuff, but there's just nothing like on the market right now. The best way to do it, if you don't have a ton of time and resources and want to make these stabilizers, is to use a hard mount like you were doing, but fly in optimal conditions and simply maintain the same level of pitch. So what you were seeing in the horizon, it was going like this, right? Like, oh, I see. Is it Alta 6, I'm guessing? Oh, an 8, really? It should, oh yeah, that makes more sense. So 6 has a realistic payload capacity of about 8 pounds. So it's not very much. Depending on what altitude you're at, and depending on the heat, I'm sure you've seen the charts, and it'll tell you what payload you can carry at what altitude and at temperature and all that. An Ozo weighs 9.5 pounds, so it's already kind of at the limit. So that's probably why. You could also mess with your vibration dampeners, change those cartridges out. We usually use the black ones, but we use the 8 with the teal vibration isolators with a locked off Ozo, and it was fine. The problem is that you end up with a huge post-production, I was going to say nightmare, but challenge. You have to figure out a way now to make all of that crazy footage stable. You can do it. It's absolutely possible. We've done it with big A7S rigs. We're flying 5 or 6 A7Ss, and that's very difficult to stabilize. So we'll just hard mount it. And basically what we do, I'm one of our pilots. So what I do is when I fly, I basically take off, get in position, and then I just set a pitch on the aircraft. and I just maintain the pitch. Like I just kind of let the aircraft dynamics control the shot instead of the other way around. Like normally you'd fly to create the shot. In this case, you would fly basically just for stabilization. So you'd want to like set pitch and just go at a steady rate. And if you do that, post-production is not that crazy. With Metal, Skybox Studio that we were just discussing, you can lock the horizon off really well. It will be some minor distortion on the edges, but it's absolutely usable. I saw a really, really well done VR piece, and I'm embarrassed I forgot who shot it, but it was all with a locked off VR array. A7S is locked off on a Alta 8 actually. And they did it for Expedia. You should look it up, it's cool. It's an Expedia spot that they did in Tasmania. And he was flying I messaged him, I was like, how'd you even do this? And he said basically just a huge post-production budget. They flew this locked off A7S array all over Tasmania, along waterfalls and windy everything, and it looks like perfect. So I guess if you have enough time and money and really talented VFX team, which you can hire out hourly out of LA. There are guys who are just specializing in that stuff. But yeah, for now, if you have the, I guess, know-how or time or resources to just do it in camera, like in other words, stabilize it, before, like we hardly do any post-stabilization. I mean, it's like 2%, 5%, that sort of thing. But yeah, it's got to change. Again, it's silly. VR it's a new thing. VR really has just come to the forefront in the last 2-3 years. And it's really only been the last year that we're having to talk about it. I haven't talked about VR in the last year. I've talked about it a ton. But before then, never. Nobody. It was just pure experiment. Now it's like really happening. A VR gimbal's on the way. There's a new company called Gimbal Guru in LA who is about to release something that's very similar to what Stratton has here, and it's $299. Yeah, that thing costs us $7,000 to make. Like one-off machining and parts and like all the R&D, all of that, which is insane. It makes no sense for a $300 camera. So Gimbal Guru, if you guys check it out, I think it's $300. It's a little handheld thing. It's not bigger than this microphone, and you can just walk around with it. Somebody's going to take that thing and screw it onto an Inspire or whatever, and at least with the Gear 360, you could probably get good content. And then maybe the $5,000 a month from Samsung. So just something to think about.
What do you do about
Yeah. Sure, yeah. He asked about how we essentially take the drone out. And it's the same process for if we're taking a tripod out or the car. You saw a couple of our RC cars in that. Same process. It's one of two things. Either we shoot what we call a plate, which is just like a clean plate where we'll set the camera here, we'll roll it on a tripod, we get our scene, and then we move the tripod, hold the camera, just shoot a clean plate of the ground. And then in After Effects, we'll drag the plate in as a mask and just cover it. With the drone, it's a little more complicated because we have a moving pattern, which is usually clouds or trees. We also fly indoors a lot. So in some cases, we have to somehow figure out how to recreate the ceiling. And in that case, we'll mount a stabilized camera on top of the drone. So we'll have the stabilized camera beneath it, and then we'll invert one of these and put it right on top. With the Ozo, we've done it where we've flown two Ozos, where we fly an Ozo on the bottom, and you just strap another Ozo to the top, and you just stitch them together in post. It works really well. Sometimes it's pretty automatic. We use a program called Auto Pano Video Pro, made by a company called Kolor, K-O-L-O-R. And with that program, you can sometimes get lucky and just hit auto, and it will find enough key points between the stitch lines that it will just match them up. Yeah. There are, like I mentioned a moment ago, there are companies in LA that are specializing, like freelance guys who you can pay $500 a day or whatever, or $1,000, and they'll do it all for you. You go shoot everything, you offload it to those guys. The next morning, all of your rigs are removed, and it's good to go. But yeah, I'm happy to answer questions like more detailed stuff. If anybody has any like really technical stuff you want to go over, we basically know everything about it. So I can give you my card. You can shoot me an email. Happy to help with anything you want. So yeah, I just got the 5-minute warning up there. So anybody else? Yeah, sure. Go ahead. Yeah, I think audio is the most exciting thing for me. Flying the drones or whatever, there's not much audio you can do there unless you just want to hear, meh. But yeah, there's some really neat audio options. So I think the next sort of evolution of this is going to be all ambisonic in other words, like microphones all around it, or at least all 4 quadrants. Just some sense of there's something happening behind me, let me look. That's another great way to lead the viewer into the next scene. Like there's a car crash or whatever it is, something drops and you're just like, and it's really effective. People are doing this now. However, now it's all in post for the most part. There are some exceptions, but generally it's a post-production audio specialist who's recreating this space in 360, almost like a video game. We hardly do it because it's complicated, and most of our clients are just now experiencing VR. Like buying into VR is challenging enough. Getting them into like ambisonic audio and these complicated things has just been too big for them. But ultimately, I think I know, I've talked to them about it. These cameras are all going to record ambisonic. So like the Ozo already does it. There are some cameras that have this already built in where like, I'm not an audio specialist, but it essentially records like a directional audio track. So like you set the microphone and the microphone knows like that's front, and it's paired with the camera and the camera knows that's front. And so when you turn, it's there. One of the challenges now is you may be able to capture it, but there are very few players that'll play it. Like YouTube just started support for it. Facebook, I heard they may have, or they're about to. And then you need headphones. If you're watching on your computer, on your mobile device, where like something like 80% of all media is consumed nowadays, you don't get ambisonic. So you have to have headphones, you have to have goggles. But we have a VR studio at our office, and we have some ambisonic stuff in there just so people can experience it. And you put it on and you experience it, it's like, wow. I mean, it's really neat. It feels like you're there. It's pretty crazy. I've got some NFL stuff where it's like the fans are right there, and then you look over and the players are screaming, and like, it's really, really cool. So it's just a matter of time. I could see 2, 3, 4 years from now, you literally hit record and it just captures everything. It's going to be awesome. And then you upload it and it's done. So yeah. Anything else? Doesn't look like it. Okay, cool. Well, thanks for your time. I hope that was informative. Appreciate it. And like I said, any questions or whatever, I'll be up there. I'll put some cards down somewhere. Just shoot us an email or go to droneworksvr.com, and then all of our email addresses and stuff. And you can talk to our post-production specialist if you want, our VFX artist. Christian, who's here, does editing. So if you have editing questions, Stratton's a tech guy. So if you want to talk about gimbal stuff or vibration isolators, he can help you with that. And then, of course, I'm always available for whatever. All right, guys.
All right, so that was 360 and Drones with Mr. Justin Oakes. Those of you that would like to see even more amazing masterclasses, make sure to check out our YouTube channel at New York City Drone Film Festival, or youtube.com/New York City Drone Film Festival. Also go to our site, NewYorkCityDroneFilmFestival.com, to see the winners of the New York City Drone Film Festival. More information, updates, all kinds of amazing stuff going on with the festival, new partnerships coming up. Oh yeah, one more thing. Make sure to join the Facebook group, NYCDFF X360. We're going to be giving away $5,000 a month to filmmakers so that they can create drone films using their Samsung Gear 360 cameras. Be well, speak soon, fly safe, we're out.